Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Alan. This is my life in Taiwan. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Pull up a chair, put your feet up, make yourself a cup of tea, and make yourself feel at home, because today I am going to be discussing where is the best location for foreigners coming to Taiwan to choose to live. Is it better to live in a bustling, metropolitan, busy city, or a quieter, more mellow, laid-back town such as this, Dongshi, where I lived for the first 2 or 3 years of my 12 that I've spent here in Taiwan. Living in a countryside town in Taiwan is completely different to what most foreigners would consider living in a countryside town in the West would be. This town that I'm walking through right now is actually considered to be a very countryside, rural location here in Taiwan, but to the untrained foreign eye, it probably just looks a little bit like every other Taiwanese city. So please bear that in mind as I go through 10 different categories comparing life in the city versus life in the countryside, and at the end of each category, I will award a victory point to either the city or the countryside. And at the end of the video, we'll tally up the points and see which of the two locations, city or countryside, is best to live if you're a foreigner. This is just my opinion as a 12-year resident of Taiwan that has pretty much lived in a Western bubble for the entirety of my time here. As always, every single point that I make is up for debate, so please feel free to join the discussion in the comment section down below. And also, while you're there in the comment section, why not let me know where exactly you are watching from, and if you're in Taiwan, do you consider yourself to be a city slicker, or are you more of a countryside bumpkin, hillbilly, redneck? Probably just offended several cultural groups. But anyway, into the first of these 10 categories that I want to discuss, and the first of which, and probably one of the most important factors you need to consider, is house prices. And as you'd expect, rent prices increase the closer you get to the city center. So where I pay 15,000 Taiwan dollars a month for this rather quaint but relatively small 2-story house in Shitun district. When I moved here back in 2008, me and my wife, we lived in this exact 3-story house, much larger than the one I live in right now, and we only paid 8,000 NT dollars, almost half of what I'm paying right now. So in this comparison, first blood definitely goes to the countryside, as rent is definitely going to be one of the biggest expenditures you have to make as a foreigner moving here. On to the next of the categories I've chosen to compare, and that's going to be the house styles, or the comfort levels of the house style in which people choose to live. Here in countryside towns such as Dongshi, people actually tend to live more often in multi-story houses, whereas here in the city, these massive modern apartment buildings are absolutely the order of the day, some of which can reach 50 stories high and offer their residents as little as 10 pings of space per resident. Although these houses in the countryside are probably a little less modern than the newer built city apartments, I personally would prefer to have more space. So I think in this one, we're going to give another point to the countryside. Countryside 2, city 0. So next in the list, and probably third most important after the price and comfort level of your house, is going to be the job options for foreigners coming here. And let's be honest, 90% of foreigners that are coming here are going to be teaching English. Here in the city, whether it's Taichung where I live or any of the other major West Coast cities, there are literally dozens, if not hundreds, of job opportunities for English teachers all year round. The reason that I was placed here in Dongshi is because I too was given a job before I arrived here, and Dongshi was the only place that had 2 jobs available in the same town for me and my ex-wife. If we had just arrived here without jobs and needed to go on the job hunting trail, then it's probably very unlikely that we would have ended up in a town such as Dongshi, because by nature there are fewer jobs here, so vacancies are less likely to pop up. Therefore, to anybody actually looking to come here and find a job after you arrive, rather than going down the agent route, which I did, then this definitely registers as a point for the city. City have scored their first point. Scores on the doors, countryside 2, city 1. Next of the categories for me to compare, and that's going to be schools. And not schools for you to work in as a teacher, but for foreign families coming here with your own children, schools that your kids are likely to attend. First point I'd like to make is that although here in the countryside there are way fewer options for schools, they do tend to be a little bit more laid back than you would find in the city, and probably more typical of the kind of relaxed schooling that we would give our kids back in the West. I have even seen elementary age kids walking to school here in Dongshi in the past, something that you just don't really see in the city because of many different safety concerns. Having said that though, I do feel that the majority of English families coming here with kids, well, they are going to want English international schools for their kids in which to study. They're probably not going to want to send their kids to a Chinese language school if they're coming here just for a year or two. Therefore, based on the wider variety of options available to you for schools in the city, such as international schools, private cram schools, English programs, bilingual schools, I have to award another point to the city, which means they've now caught up. The score, city 2, countryside 2. Next in the list is probably one of the categories that was most important to me when I first left England and came to Taiwan, and that was the ability to find a good social life. When I was here in Dongshi, I really struggled to find places to go for fun. There is literally not one single bar or pub in this whole town. And yes, of course, I know that there is lots of other things that we can do for fun, but I was literally spending thousands of Taiwanese dollars every month to take taxis into the city with my wife, just so we can have more of a Western style drink and social get together. You just want to do what you usually would do back in your home country, which is get together with a few friends and have a few scoops in a bar or restaurant, just like the one I frequently visit here in Taichung City. Pubs and bar culture is incredibly important to Brits, and especially Brits abroad. Therefore, another point awarded to the City Slickers, giving them a 3-2 lead at the halfway point. Okay, let's quickly rattle through a few of the other categories as this video is getting a bit lengthy already. Parks might be important to some people, and it's a little bit difficult to judge because Taiwan is phenomenal when it comes to parks. Each local government does put a lot of effort and money into their local parks, but for me, the city parks are just that extra little bit more vibrant, giving us more opportunity to meet other foreigners and mingle and interact with local Taiwanese. And when I lived here in Dongshi, I just didn't really feel attracted to the parks as much. Therefore, I'm going to give this one as a win to the city. City 4, countryside 2, heading in to round number 7. Next category, leisure facilities. The sheer size and scale of the countryside gives you more freedom to find space to do the kind of leisure activities that you want. But there are just fewer people, so therefore there are fewer organized activities and clubs if there's something specific that you really want to take up as a hobby. Here in the city, there is basically a club for almost everything you want to do, just because of the sheer numbers of people that you are likely to share common interests with. Therefore, choosing a winner in this category is giving me more of a challenge. So I think on this one, I'm probably going to call this one a draw, just because it's so much down to the individual and what leisure activities you're actually into. City 5, countryside 3. Next topic, and we are going to discuss a category that everybody likes to complain about, whether you live in the city or the countryside, and that's the air pollution. Here in Dongshi, I used to walk the 1 kilometer, wherever it was, from home to school and back every day, and when I would get home and take a shower or wash my face, I would be surprised by the amount of soot or carbon pollution that was on the face cloth after I'd washed my face. But in Taiwan, the city center air, especially here in Taichung, is absolutely thick with pollution. And it's something that I've kind of learned to ignore over the past few years of living here. But recently, with the pandemic forcing us all to wear masks, every day when I get home and I take a look at that mask, you can see it is thick with black soot, smog, smoke, whatever you want to call it. Anybody that tells you that the countryside towns of Taiwan are not polluted is having a laugh. And if my situation allowed it, I'd probably choose that slightly less polluted air of Dongshi over the heavily polluted air here in Taichung City. We are certainly not breathing fresh countryside air here in Dongshi. I think this one is going down to a countryside victory. 5-4 is the score. We've got a game on our hands. So onto a pretty contentious penultimate topic. We are going to be talking about the people. I'm going to keep it quick because I know the video is getting out of control in length, but basically it's pretty much the same story as you would find back in the West. A difference between the countryside and the city goers is that in the city, people are much busier they generally don't have time to stop and interact with you. Here in the countryside, life just tends to move at a much slower pace. This tends to give people more of an opportunity, more time to notice you, interact with you, and basically just make you feel that little bit more welcome. Don't get me wrong, the city people in Taiwan are not rude or ignorant at all. They generally just don't have as much time to interact with you. So that being said, give me a welcoming, more friendly, easier lifestyle type of person over you busy city slickers. Point in this round is definitely going to the countryside, meaning we are all tied, 5-all, going into the final round. Final topic, convenience. Now, as a foreigner living back in your home countries before you come to Taiwan, you might not think that you need a place to buy fruits and vegetables, or even somewhere to pay your gas bill at 3 o'clock in the morning. But after just a few months of living here in Taiwan, you start to depend on the untold convenient resources that are available to you 24 hours a day. The city, of course, has convenience stores, KTVs, gyms, bars, restaurants, you name it, they've got it in every major city in Taiwan. Whereas back in 2008 here in Dongshi, the most convenient thing we had was this 24-hour supermarket, a McDonald's, and an 85C, and a handful of other convenience stores. So from a purely newbie foreigner looking to come here and set up a life, I have to award the final point to the city slickers, giving the city a 6-5 victory over the countryside. And meaning that if you're a new foreigner looking to come and live in Taiwan, that you should 100% absolutely ignore the countryside and come straight to the biggest city you can find, right? No, of course not. That's not the point I'm trying to make. I think you can see from the points that I raised and the comparisons that we discussed that every category has its own individual pros and cons, and most of the time it's going to come down to the individual. And if you're truly thinking about making the move to Taiwan, definitely don't just base it upon what I have to say. Yes, I've been here a long time, but the majority of that time has been spent in a Western bubble. So please take everything I've got to say with a pinch of salt. If you agree, disagree with anything I've said in this video, then please leave comments down below. There's a discussion always on every video I make. And if you're new here and you've enjoyed this video, then please hit subscribe. Really helps the channel out. And it's free. My favorite price is free. But as I said, time to say goodbye. So as for now and as always, I'll see you next time. My life in Taiwan. Peace.